Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and we're here to answer the age-old question that has plagued postamancers for all of known history: is it worth it? And today we're taking a look at West of Loathing, a stick-figure slapstick RPG developed by Asymmetric. And before we get started, I have to say that this will not be an objective first impression of this game, and I'll tell you why. West of Loathing is from the same minds that brought us Kingdom of Loathing, a phenomenal browser-based RPG that has been around since February of 2003, and Kingdom of Loathing is still on my list of as-yet-to-be-completed Diamond Devs videos, which I still plan on making at some point in time. I was first introduced to Kingdom of Loathing about a year after it launched, and I was immediately drawn to the cheeky dad humor style jokes, fourth wall breaking general irreverence, and surprising depth of gameplay for such a simple design. I was an instant fan, and I played the game for several years until, after living in an area with no internet for over a year, it fell off my radar. Regardless, I remember the free browser-based game with an extreme fondness, and when I heard that a game titled West of Loathing had been released, I immediately felt a tinge of glee. Now, I know that normally my mentality is somewhat tempered, but even I can fall prey to the fanboy hype every once in a while. I even bought the game several days ago, but I decided that what better way to start getting back into the groove of first impressions reviews than with a successor to the browser-based game that I used to enjoy so much. And before we get into the actual game, let's talk about the options menu real quick. Now, I wasn't expecting much, as this is a stick-figure black and white game that maintains the aesthetic of Kingdom of Loathing, except this one has real-time motion. Still, the game does have all the features I would expect to see and a few that I wouldn't. Now, all of your standard screen resolutions are supported, as is music and sound effect sliders. The game also offers several in-game options, including an auto level up, and yes, your eyes do not deceive you, this game has a colorblind option. That's right. Let me say that again, just so you can grasp the full import. West of Loathing, the black and white stick-figure game, has a colorblind option. Which, of course, the tooltip states, you never know. And that, I think, sums up the style and the personality of the developer more than anything else that I can think of, with an extreme attention to detail to the point of including an option that doesn't even need to be there because some jerk like me would notice it. Now, launching into the game, you have 3 different classes to choose from, which are different from the Seal Clubber and Postamancer choices we had with Kingdom of Loathing, but the similar principle remains. We have the Cowpuncher, which is your average bruiser-type class, and it's listed as being for players that are looking for a challenge, but also want to enjoy the story. This would be your moderate difficulty character. Next, we have the Beanslinger, which focuses on the Mysticality stat. This is listed as the hardest class to use, and the one that I immediately went for. And then lastly, we have the Snake Oiler, who focuses on the Moxie stat. This class is listed as being for beginners and is the easiest of the 3 classes. And once you get into the game, you will notice that I was most certainly not kidding when I said that this was a stick-figure game. Everything is in this black and white, hand-drawn aesthetic, which was and is the hallmark of the Loathing game experience. The game does, however, have full WASD controls, along with having full mouse control support. And this game's controls are not complex. There's no timing combination for extra power attacks or anything of the sort, and it can be played somewhat casually with just leaning back in your chair having one hand on the mouse, just as the web-based game was, except in this, you're not limited to a certain number of actions per day. Now, before we get into the combat, I'll show you the character and inventory systems real quick. Now, as for your character, everything is based on XP, as is everything else under the sun. Now, you do gain XP with every encounter that you're able to either save up or spend right away. There aren't really levels within this game per se, but many activities that you attempt to perform will require a certain stat at a certain level, such as opening a lock safe might take 7 might. If you only have 5, you'll need to wait and raise that stat a bit later and then return. And of course, there are many items within the game that, in addition to their normal features, will provide bonuses to your core stats, of which there are a standard set of role-playing stats merely named a little different. For example, my character has an Ancient Bean Can equipped in his offhand, which provides him with a +3 to his Mysticality, or the Desert Gang's 6-gun, a weapon so fancy you might even go so far as to rate it a 7-gun. This weapon, in addition to dealing 6 to 7 damage, also provides my character Wyatt with a +1 Moxie. And as you can see, this game does provide you with a wide variety of loot, all of it with a bit of a humorous tinge, and that includes items that can be sold, gear to be worn, and consumables that can raise your stats for the day. Now, the inventory system is simple yet robust, which is just like everything else within this game. It would be nice to have different tabs to better delineate gear within the inventory system, but it's functional enough, I suppose. But as with any RPG, you are going to need to get around, and this game does make use of a world map that allows you to travel between areas fairly easily, providing random encounters that are sometimes beneficial and sometimes will result in combat. And as for the combat itself, it is turn-based and simplistic, yet deceptively simple, which will progress in difficulty and complexity as your character learns additional abilities and encounters more and more powerful creatures. However, it's extremely easy to get the hang of, but for the first-time players, I would not recommend taking the Beanslinger as I did. I would start off at the Cowpuncher or even the Snake Oiler if you're just interested in casually passing your time and indulging in some excellently humorous gameplay. And the game is funny. It is full of quips, one-liners, dad jokes galore. It's literally bursting with dad jokes, and fourth wall breaking. The designers of Kingdom of Loathing have shown that their sense of humor has not been dulled in the slightest over the years, and I look forward to each interaction. Plus, the game is not on rails. It gives you options on how to solve different scenarios, either based on your class, your stats, or just your own mentality as the player, and you're able to roam freely within the game. This freedom of choice, this player agency, along with the different classes and different ways to adjust the stats of your characters, means that this game will have a fantastic amount of replayability on top of what is reported as having over 20 hours of content to begin with. Now, to be honest, I did really try to find something to provide as a caveat to everyone, but the only thing I could think of is the lack of a more robust inventory management system and the fact that clicking on your different options with the mouse doesn't always work the first time. Aside from those very minor gripes, this is just hands down a fantastic game and a wonderfully good time. So, is it worth it? For its $11 asking price once the game's release discount goes away? Absolutely. 100% without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, this is a good game and is yet one more example as to why these developers belong on my list of diamond devs. This game, in spite of my very clear and obvious bias, will most likely end up on my top 10 games of 2017. And if you're a fan of humorous RPGs, West of Loathing will not disappoint. But as always, please do let me know what you think down in the comments below. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I'll see you next time.